When you tap your Mastercard for dinner, like on a Friday night, your app sends you a push notification saying the money is gone instantly. But it is actually lying to you.
Yeah, it's a complete illusion, really.
Right. In reality, your money is stuck in this weird 1970s digital purgatory until Monday morning. But as of today, June 3, 2026, Mastercard is officially killing bankers' hours. They are plugging their global network directly into the crypto blockchain.
So, welcome to the deep dive. We are unpacking a massive industry-shaking announcement from Mastercard today.
Huge announcement.
Yeah, they're fundamentally rewiring the global financial plumbing to settle transactions using regulated stablecoins across public blockchains. We are talking about a permanent live bridge between traditional finance, or TradFi, and the crypto world.
And we have a phenomenal stack of sources to ground this discussion, too. We are looking directly at Mastercard's official strategic announcements alongside some very heavy-hitting academic research.
Really dense stuff. Oh, absolutely. We are pulling from the latest Bank for International Settlements reports, the BIS and peer-reviewed data from the Journal of Financial Economics. I want to make this clear right up front. This is not a trial run. It's not a cute pilot program in some corporate sandbox. Mastercard is live.
Live and scaling. And for you listening right now, our promise is to take all of that dense financial and cryptographic jargon and translate it into what it actually means for your wallet, your next weekend purchase, and the future of how value moves around the planet.
Which is going to change drastically.
It is. But before we get to the crypto blockchains, we have to talk about the villain of this story. We have to unpack the lie of that instant transaction. When you hear that beep at the restaurant, that is just an authorization.
Right. It is merely a promise.
Yeah.
The network is essentially pinging your bank to ask, does this person actually have the funds?
And the bank says yes and just puts a hold on your account.
Exactly. But the actual settlement, the literal movement of value from your bank's vault to the restaurant's bank's vault, relies on this incredibly archaic system known as T+2. That stands for transaction plus 2 business days.
Which feels completely absurd. I mean, we live in an era where high-definition data moves across the globe at the speed of light, but money still moves at the speed of a 1970s clearinghouse.
It really does. And to understand why, you kind of have to look at the history of how banks settle accounts. T+2 is a relic of a physical era. Decades ago, banks literally had to load paper checks and ledger books onto trains and courier vehicles.
Wait, literally trains?
Yes, physically transporting them to a central clearinghouse. At the end of the day, clerks would just tally up who owed what to whom. And even as computers entered the picture in the 70s and 80s, the financial sector simply digitized that exact same batch processing workflow.
So they didn't fix the bottleneck?
No, they didn't reinvent the system at all. They just put the paper ledger on a mainframe.
And that mainframe still takes the weekend off, which is wild. It honors national holidays. If you buy something at 8 p.m. on a Friday before a long holiday weekend, that money might not actually move until the following Wednesday.
Which introduces the central driver of Mastercard's entire strategy here, which is opportunity cost. The core issue with T+2 isn't just that it is slow, it is that it traps capital.
Right.
Imagine a massive global merchant, like, say, an international airline. Millions of dollars in ticket sales are flowing through their systems every weekend. Under the legacy T+2 system, those millions are locked up.
Totally frozen. They can't use that money to pay suppliers. They can't invest it overnight in short-term bonds to earn interest. They can't deploy it for an emergency. It is just trapped liquidity.
And trapped liquidity is lost money. The Journal of Financial Economics paper in our sources maps this out brilliantly, actually. In a high-interest rate environment, the opportunity cost of having billions of dollars sitting idle for 3 days is staggering.
Millions of dollars just left on the table.
Exactly. It is a Wall Street arms race. By using a stablecoin to settle that ledger on a Sunday afternoon, that capital is freed up instantly. The airline can put that money to work the very same day.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit more. Looking at this BIS paper, what shocked me was the hard data on correspondent banks. Because they aren't just slow off, they actively siphon money out of the system at every single stop.
Oh, the fees are brutal.
Right. If I want to send money to a vendor in Brazil, my bank doesn't have a direct line to their bank. So it hops to an intermediary bank in New York, then maybe to another one in Miami, then to one in São Paulo before finally landing.
The daisy chain.
Yeah, the daisy chain. And each one of those hops takes a fee and adds a day of processing. Mastercard's June 3 announcement bypasses all of that by operating regulated stablecoins in parallel with traditional fiat processes.
What's fascinating here is that they're replacing that multi-hop correspondent bank daisy chain with a direct peer-to-peer digital token transfer. The stablecoin is tied one-to-one with the US dollar, and it settles instantly on a shared public ledger.
Like sending a text message instead of a physical letter.
That is a great way to think about it. And early adopters like ARQ Finance and Nuvei are already plugged in. They're bypassing the traditional banking rails entirely for weekend settlements right now.
Wow. But this brings us to the actual mechanics of the infrastructure, and this is where I have to, throw a flag on the play.
Okay, lay it on me.
Because instead of building a private, secure, walled-off Mastercard chain, they are plugging into the public blockchains that the crypto world already uses. They are supporting a toolbox of 8 different chains, heavily focusing on Ethereum, the XRP Ledger, and Solana.
Right, the public utilities.
Yeah, but wait, I get the internet utility argument, but relying on public infrastructure means Mastercard is at the mercy of Solana's infamous network outages or, Ethereum's wild congestion. How do they justify that risk to their shareholders?
It comes down to a philosophy of multi-chain resilience. If we connect this to the bigger picture, you have to look at how they are routing these transactions. They are treating these public blockchains the way a shipping conglomerate treats international waters.
Okay.
You don't own the ocean, but you use it to move your cargo. And to your point about outages, that is precisely why they support 8 different chains instead of just one.
So it's like Google Maps for money.
Yes, exactly.
If the Ethereum highway is backed up with traffic and the tolls are surging, Mastercard's backend just reroutes the transaction down the Solana side street so the settlement arrives at the exact same time.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. It prevents a single point of failure. Because if Mastercard built their own proprietary network, any bug in their code brings global commerce to a dead stop.
And nobody wants that.
Definitely not. By utilizing multiple public chains, they are meeting the crypto ecosystem where it already lives, tapping into hundreds of billions of dollars of existing liquidity and ensuring they always have an alternative route if one network goes dark.
Let's break down those specific routes then, because the sources are really clear that these chains are not interchangeable. They each solve a very different piece of the puzzle.
They do.
Let's start with the XRP Ledger, or XRPL. The focus here is heavily on cross-border payments.
Right, because XRPL was structurally designed from its inception to move value across borders efficiently. The underlying architecture doesn't rely on the energy-intensive mining you see in, say, Bitcoin.
So it's greener.
Much greener. It uses a unique consensus protocol that settles transactions in about 3 to 5 seconds. And it integrates flawlessly with Ripple's new RLUSD stablecoin. The sources point out that Mastercard's previous pilots, like the one they ran with the Gemini credit card, proved that XRPL can handle this volume without breaking a sweat.
3 to 5 seconds for an international settlement absolutely destroys the correspondent banking model. I mean, it's not even a competition. But then you look at Ethereum.
Ethereum.
Right. Ethereum is the grandfather of smart contracts. It is the most mature, battle-tested network out there. It holds massive stablecoins like Circle's USDC. But there is a massive elephant in the room with Ethereum, and that is gas fees.
The notorious gas fees, yes. The base layer of Ethereum forces users to pay a variable cost just to execute a transaction. During a busy day, moving a few dollars could cost you $20 in fees.
Which makes 0 sense for a payments company. You can't charge a $20 fee on a $5 coffee.
It makes no sense at all, which is why Mastercard isn't settling every transaction on the Ethereum base layer. The sources show they are heavily utilizing Layer 2 scaling solutions, specifically networks like Base.
Okay, let's unpack how a Layer 2 actually works, because to a lot of people it can sound like magic.
It kind of is.
Instead of paying a massive network fee for every single transaction, a Layer 2 acts like a bartender keeping a tab. If I go to a crowded bar, I don't run my credit card for every single beer I order. I open a tab.
Right, that would be incredibly annoying for the bartender.
Exactly. So I buy 10 drinks over the course of the night, but the bartender only settles the final bill with the credit card company once at the end of the night, paying just one single fee.
That is exactly the mechanism. The Layer 2 network batches thousands of Mastercard stablecoin transactions off the main Ethereum chain. It bundles them all up into one single cryptographic receipt and then settles that one receipt on Ethereum.
Oh, wow.
So you get the unmatched security and deep liquidity of the Ethereum vault, but the cost per transaction drops to a fraction of a cent.
That's brilliant. But even with Layer 2s, there's a structural limit to Ethereum's speed. So if Ethereum is secure but can get pricey during peaks, what happens if Mastercard needs to process millions of tiny retail purchases globally? like the $3 coffees. If the fees eat the profit margin even slightly, the whole model collapses. How do they solve the extreme microtransaction problem?
That naturally introduces the third titan in their strategy, which is Solana. If Ethereum is the secure heavy-duty vault, Solana is the high-speed rail network. Solana was built with a completely different architecture, focused on maximum throughput. We are talking about the capacity to process thousands of transactions per second.
Which is Visa and Mastercard territory. That's what they need.
It is. The trade-off is that Solana requires extremely powerful hardware to run its validator nodes. But the result is a network where stablecoins like Paxos's PYUSD and SoFi USD can move at light speed for practically zero cost. It is custom-built for high-volume, everyday retail transactions.
Okay, all of this technology sounds beautiful on paper, the instant messaging of money. But let's get real for a second. We are talking about merging 21st century, highly experimental crypto architecture with 20th century legacy banking.
Yes.
That is guaranteed to create massive friction. The risks here have to be monumental, right?
Oh, the risks are the most substantial part of the academic literature we reviewed. Let's start with the most glaring hurdle, which is regulatory compliance. We are trying to apply rigid, decades-old banking laws to 247 borderless, instantaneous digital networks. It is a fundamental clash of paradigms.
Because traditional banking relies heavily on anti-money laundering or AML and know your customer KYC laws. In the traditional world, a bank knows exactly who I am, where I live, and where my money is going. If regulators suspect fraud, they can freeze my account immediately.
Exactly.
But public blockchains are inherently pseudonymous and permissionless. Anyone can open a wallet without a background check.
And that terrifies regulators. I mean, look at Europe. The European Union has recently implemented MiCA, the Markets in Crypto Assets Regulation. It is a highly complex legal framework that demands strict oversight of stablecoin issuance.
It's super strict.
Very. If Mastercard is facilitating the movement of billions of dollars using USDC or PYUSD, regulators want to know that those tokens aren't being routed through sanctioned entities. But how do you enforce a localized freeze on a decentralized global ledger?
You essentially can't, which puts the compliance burden entirely on Mastercard's endpoints. And speaking of endpoints, we have to talk about the cybersecurity nightmare here.
Yeah, let's talk about the bridges.
Because blockchains themselves, the core ledgers of Ethereum or Solana, are incredibly difficult to hack. But the source material throws massive red flags around the bridges that connect these different chains.
Bridges are undeniably the weak link in the multi-chain vision. To understand why bridges are such a honeypot for hackers, you have to look at what a bridge actually is. When you want to move a token from Ethereum to Solana, you aren't actually sending a digital file across a wire. You are interacting with two different smart contracts.
Right. It's kind of like going to a video game arcade. You can't put your actual US dollar bills into the Pac-Man machine. You have to go to the front desk, lock your real dollars in their physical vault, and they mint you a handful of synthetic arcade tokens.
Perfect analogy.
You play the games, and when you leave, you return the tokens, they burn them, and unlock your real dollars.
That is the exact mechanism of a blockchain bridge. You lock your USDC in a smart contract on Ethereum, and the bridge mints a synthetic version of that USDC on Solana. The danger is that the smart contract holding the original assets basically becomes a massive multi-million-dollar vault.
A giant target.
Exactly. If a hacker finds a single flaw in the code of that vault, they can drain all the real assets.
And if the real dollars in the vault are gone, the synthetic arcade tokens floating around on the other chain instantly become worthless. We have seen bridge hacks in the crypto space cost billions over the last few years.
It's been a bloodbath in the past.
Yeah.
The sources mentioned Mastercard is implementing their own safety layer called Crypto Secure to monitor these vulnerabilities. But the risk of a smart contract exploit is never zero. Never.
And beyond the bridges, there is the existential risk of the stablecoins themselves. Depegging. A stablecoin is only useful if it strictly maintains its one-to-one peg with the US dollar. But the mechanics of how they maintain that peg vary, and they are susceptible to market panic.
We saw this with algorithmic stablecoins that failed spectacularly a few years ago. But even the fully reserve-backed ones aren't completely immune, are they?
No, they aren't.
Because USDC and PYUSD are backed by actual dollars and short-term treasuries sitting in real-world bank accounts. But what happens during a severe market shock?
It becomes the digital equivalent of a bank run. If rumors spread that the bank holding the stablecoin's reserves is insolvent, traders will rush to swap their stablecoins for other assets. That massive sell pressure can cause the token to temporarily lose its peg, dropping to, say, 98 or 97 cents on the dollar.
Which sounds minor to an everyday person. Like if I lose 2 cents on a dollar, I don't really care. But if Mastercard is settling $5 billion of global commerce over a weekend, a 2-cent deviation is $100 million in instantaneous losses.
Just gone. Poof.
The accounting nightmare of trying to reconcile that across 8 different blockchains, each with its own ledger, sounds like absolute chaos.
The multi-chain fragmentation is a massive operational lift. You're reconciling data across Solana, Ethereum, XRPL, and Base, constantly managing liquidity pools on each chain to ensure there are enough tokens to settle the volume of transactions happening at any given millisecond.
It's mind-boggling.
It requires a level of technological sophistication that legacy banks simply do not possess.
Which is actually the perfect pivot to our final big question. Let's look at the traditional brick-and-mortar bank down the street, the regional bank holding your checking account. Are they actually going to adapt to this? Are legacy banks going to spend tens of millions of dollars to upgrade their ancient mainframe computers, hire specialized blockchain engineers, and navigate this massive, terrifying regulatory minefield just to settle payments on a Sunday?
This raises an important question, but the short answer is yes. They're going to, because they have no other choice. It all goes back to the central villain we discussed earlier, opportunity cost. The efficiency gains in capital management are so overwhelming that it forces their hand.
So it's an adapt or die scenario.
Completely. Imagine 2 competing merchant banks. Bank A sticks to the T+2 system. Bank B integrates with Mastercard's new stablecoin network. A large retail client comes along and says, we process $10 million in sales every weekend.
Okay.
Bank A says we can't touch that money until Tuesday. Bank B says we can have it Sunday night, ready to earn interest on Monday morning. Bank A loses that client instantly.
Wow. And multiply that by thousands of merchants globally. If the traditional banks refuse to adopt this infrastructure, they won't just be a little slower. They will bleed money and lost opportunities and defecting clients.
Exactly.
The market is going to demand the speed. Nuvei and the early adopters are proving that the capital efficiency is real right now. The legacy banks are going to have to swallow the integration costs or just watch their market share evaporate.
They're basically building a new superhighway.
Yeah.
It is expensive to build the on-ramp, sure, but eventually all the traffic is going to demand to use the fastest route.
So synthesizing everything we've pulled from these sources today, the big picture is pretty clear. Mastercard isn't trying to replace fiat currency. This isn't some push to make everyone pay for their groceries in Bitcoin. They're simply upgrading the tracks.
Right.
They are forcing traditional money to move at the exact same speed as the internet. The future of payments mapped out in this research is undeniably hybrid. It is tokenized, it runs on public utilities, and most importantly, it is always on. So the next time you are out to dinner and you swipe your card on a Sunday night, just realize that the settlement of that dinner might be quietly and instantly finalizing on a public blockchain before you even walk out the restaurant door.
And that reality leaves us with one final provocative thought to consider. If we follow this trajectory to its logical conclusion, as this multi-chain infrastructure scales and cross-border payments become truly instant, practically free, and totally invisible to the user, how long will it be until the very concept of national exchange rates and international transaction fees feels completely archaic?
Oh, that's interesting.
Right. Will there be a day in the near future where paying an international bank fee feels as ridiculous to everyday consumers as paying by the minute for a long-distance phone call?
The friction of borders just vanishes. That is an incredible point to leave on. Well, that is something to mull over the next time you tap to pay. Keep questioning the hidden systems operating all around you, and we will see you on the next deep dive.